something a lot more recent. I have been playing Dontnod's latest game, Tell Me Why. So, Tell Me Why is it's an episodic adventure interactive story game from Dontnod Entertainment and published by Xbox Game Studios. So that means it's exclusive for Xbox and PC, unlike the majority of their previous games, which have generally been multi-platform. Um, so with this game, the first chapter came out on the August 27th, and all three chapters, there's only three of them, have been released now. So I was originally going to just give my, I guess, Swinpressions of the first chapter, but I've played through the whole game, so this is almost like a review at this point. And it's it's on Game Pass, so I didn't have to pay anything outside of what I pay for Game Pass, so that was always a benefit. And I think for this kind of game, it is a huge benefit because it's not probably the kind of game I'd immediately go, I'm going to go out and purchase that. But because it's available, I'm saying, hey, and I want to have a chat about it, I thought I'd jump in. So Dontnod, they essentially they hit the industry with Remember Me back in 2013. But they really made their name with Life is Strange, which the first series came out in 2015. And Life is Strange is a very much what this game is in a lot of ways. So if you've ever played any of those games, whether or not it was in the first series, Before the Storm, or Life is Strange 2, the gameplay is very similar. But the reason why I was keen to really play this was because I was a huge fan of their game Vampire, which came out in 2018 and is now on essentially every current console. I love that game, but it's very different. That's like an action RPG set in, like in England, but like I can't remember the exact time frame. But it was very different than this. But I definitely see a lot of that game in the way that this game is presented, and I think Dontnod do a great job in creating moments and things that kind of stick with you. But as for Tell Me Why, so this game was showcased in one of the recent Xbox events, and I'd say that the trailer that they showed was very representative, but didn't make me go, I really want to play that. But it's an interesting game, and it essentially is based around. So you've got a brother and sister, and I'm not going to go into spoiler territory, by the way. Everything I'm talking about this game was either in the trailer or you learn in the first like 5 minutes of the game. So it's like just the story. So it's a very focused story about a brother and sister named Tyler and Allison. They're twins, basically returning to after 10 years to their family home in a small town in Alaska known as Dallas Crossing. And it's all about them returning after a family tragedy that happened 10 years ago, which resulted in the death of the mother. And so the plot's all about them trying to piece together everything that happened there. And the twins had been split up since then, so they hadn't seen each other in person, or I don't believe they've seen each other in person for 10 years. With Ellison staying behind in the town with the foster parent, who's the chief of police, which works into the whole storyline as well. And Tyler being sent to a juvenile detention center because he was the one that killed the mother. So that's all stated up front, right? We know that he stabbed the mother in self-defense. So it's all about trying to figure out why things happened, which is really cool. Like it's almost like a mystery, but between a small group of about 7 to 8 people in a small town. So you're just trying to as the brother and sister, try to figure out why was the mother drove to basically the mother like chase them with a shotgun and things. It's like what happened, right? And it's a lot of the themes of this. And this is really important. It was all about identity. So whether or not it's unpacking the mystery behind the mother and what happened, what caused her breakdown, but also about the identity of the siblings themselves, and in particular Tyler, who's actually a trans man. And this game has received a lot of praise for how it actually tackles the trans and identity themes. And they worked closely with GLAAD, and they actually have a trans character playing Tyler. And I think it's handled really, really well. And it's not just they're tacking on, you play as a trans person for, sake of diversity. It's very important to the storyline because it's very central to the relationship with the mother. And I can't get into more of it, why that's important, but it's really, really interesting how the story revolves around it. And it's really refreshing, this is one of the first games that the main character is trans, and you have to really it opens, I think, your mind up to a lot of, well, this person's going back to they were a kid when they left the town. They're coming back to the town for the first time, and so you see all the reactions of the people to, oh, Tyler, oh, okay, like, and how awkward it is. And sometimes you see how people, go out of their way to kind of make that, to make an effort to kind of, to address that, or some people that are really awkward or rude about it. And it's just really, really interesting. And one thing I'll say about the story as well, that for anyone that's familiar with Life is Strange, this story also has some out there elements as well. So while it is very much, oh, you're in a small town, it gets a little crazy at times. So, but it is only it's about a 9-hour game when you factor in all 3 chapters. So it does tell a very, a very focused story, and of a core group of about 7 to 8 people, including your main characters. As for the actual gameplay itself, so Intergot, I don't think you've ever played. Have you ever played a Telltale game or Life is Strange or anything like
No.
that? So
No, I played What Remains of Edith Finch,
okay, so
but that's a bit different.
it is, but I wouldn't say it's too dissimilar. In some ways, where a lot of the game is essentially you walking around interacting with objects, and with this game, it's full 3D exploration. There's no fixed camera or anything, so you're walking around and you're essentially, interacting with objects, learning about the story and the characters through that, and talking to the characters themselves. And there's a lot of choose your own adventure here, so a lot of decision making. That's that's where the Telltale Life is Strange stuff comes really into it, how it impacts the outcome of the story. And quite a few cool puzzles as well. And it's all revolving around this like fairy tale storybook that they put together as kids with the mother. And so there's all these different stories that then relate to the history and everything. And some light quick play events, which actually fit in pretty well. It's definitely not a graphical powerhouse, but it doesn't really need to be. I mean, it's running on the Unreal Engine, but the character animations are really good and the voice acting is great, which is the most important part in this game.
Yeah.
Some really good facial animations. Like there's some scenes where they've got to convey some pretty serious emotions. So I think they do really well. And just the setting, the small fishing town in Alaska, it's all snowed over. It feels right. I think they've done a really good job there, and they make some really good licensed music choices. So overall, I think the presentation's pretty good. It suits what the game needs to be, but I will say I did have some problems with this game. I've written down here installation woes. So
Installation
oh
woes.
man, this it's like basically. So I played through chapter 1, and then I'm like, oh, I need to play through chapter 2 and 3 before the podcast. So I hadn't done that, and yesterday I'm like, okay, I need to play through these. So the first time I loaded up like a week ago and played through chapter 1, it was like 8 gig patch. I'm like, okay, cool, all right, whatever. I haven't played this game, blah blah blah, right? Then I install chapters 2 and 3, and I go to load them. Another 8 gig patch a week later. I'm like, okay, all right, okay. Then I load episode 2 again, another 7 gig patch. I'm like, come on, I just want to play the game at this point. But it was an episode patch for it was a patch for episode 3, and I'm like, oh, whatever, all right, just install. Then I go to load it again. Now it's another 5 gig patch for episode 2. It was like altogether 4 bloody patches, and I'm just like, oh my god. But other than that, I really enjoyed the game. The story and the characters really actually captivated me. I don't know if it's going to be everyone's cup of tea. I have a feeling I'd actually like to go back to play Life is Strange games to see how they compare. I think a lot of people love the first 2 series of that, and maybe a little let down by this one because it's quite short. Some of the narrative stuff didn't pay off as well as I thought it would. But I've heard that potentially this game may have originally been much larger in scope and it got scaled down. So that might be part of it, is that they had much grander, narrative threads that they wanted to work on, but they needed to work into a nice condensed 3-chapter story. As I mentioned, they've got a really good flair for moments. Just like there's a nice scene where you're just sitting there ice fishing with a character, and it's just you chatting this character and learning more about them, and just really, really well done. As I said, it's not for everyone. The game's pretty slow paced, so it might not hook people. But as I said before, it's on Game Pass. So you can give the first chapter a shot. If you don't like it after the first hour, then you haven't really lost anything but that hour. So I don't think there's got anything to lose. But it's honestly I've been playing so much Kingdom of Amalur. It's just a nice break from mindless action. Hyrule Warriors is it reminds me of that. And overcomplicated systems, that in nearly every modern game, it's just you're walking around talking to people and learning about a cool story. So you might end up loving it like I did.
Yeah, nice. And I guess the way I'd always look at these games, because I feel like with these type of games, and is there a name for them? Because I feel like the title walking simulator is so derogatory for these kind of games.
People generally don't consider these ones walking simulators. They're just
okay.
they're adventure games, but they're not point and click adventures really. So they're not.
Yeah.
To call it a point and click, you pick up items, but there's no inventory, which is kind of a key thing to point and click. So they're not like your Monkey Islands or your Grim Fandangos or anything. So I think adventure game is kind of probably the most suitable term for them. When I think adventure walking simulator, I do think something like Edith Finch or Gone Home, and games where you're not really interacting with many people. You're just kind of just walking from point to point, and it's all about the experience of that. This is very much you're making narrative choices, you're picking up items, you're speaking to people, things like that. So it's much more interactive than those games generally are. So
yeah. And would you say that this game is so compelling that it should bring people who aren't really even into those games in the first place, or it's more of a game that if you like those style of games, it's well worth playing?
It's a tough one because it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. No way at all. I spent like half an hour just walking around a store looking at items in the game just because I wanted to hear what the character said about a random bottle of bleach and things. I didn't need to. I was keen to explore and learn more about the world and what the characters, how they think. A lot of people just love to play Tetris or jump in a Call of Duty match and things. They don't care about learning about this. And there's times when it might ruffle people's feathers a bit because obviously it's tackling some tough issues, whether or not about identity or if it's about there's a lot of mental illness and things as well. And it's some of that stuff might also be a bit troubling to people as well. But I think I think it's worth a shot because it's on Game Pass. And if you don't like how it kind of, as I said, like the first hour, by that point you've seen how the game plays. You kind of get an idea of what it's going to be storyline wise. So that'll be kind of, I guess, the point you make a decision whether or not you want to, sit there for the whole time. It's like any TV series. So this is very much like a TV series game in a way.
Yeah, no, fair enough. No, sounds good. Sounds awesome.